Oh, I love Culture Night. One of the main things I love about Culture Night is people. There's just people everywhere. You meet people that you haven't seen for ages. The only thing now about this year that I'm going to miss is the gossip shop. The gossip shop was where anyone could just go in, sit down, chat, talk about anything, telling stories, and you just hear things that you'd forgotten about and bringing stuff back, and that was just amazing. It's just a pity there's nothing like that the gossip shop is gone. The thing about it was too, it wasn't just a gossip shop. You could go in and buy stuff in there. And my first bicycle I ever had, I got from John Kendi. It was just unbelievable, the people that used to go in and out there. An awful lot of people were lost when he died because they had no place to go. And at least with Culture Night, you have people able to get out and about and meeting people, and they have places to go. What I really loved, the last Culture Night now before COVID, was that the Freemasons was open, because you never get to see inside the Freemasons. And I remember standing in a queue waiting to go in, because there were so many people who wanted to go in to see it, because you never get in there. But I didn't mind waiting, because it was worth it when I got inside. I couldn't even describe it. You have to go there yourself. And it's actually open this Friday night again. I mean, where would you get to go in to see the Freemasons building? You'd never get to see that, And the medieval garden, I remember one year up there, it was the one again before COVID, and they had music playing up there, different bands, and they had marquees, and the music was unbelievable, but we got stuck with the music. And then we had to leave there because we had to go into the church, into the collegiate church, because the choral were singing in there, and we wanted to go in and hear them. Then we didn't hear the choral, but then we couldn't stay there because we had to rush downtown to Cape Powers, because she was doing an exhibition on lace, and she had a young lady singing and playing the harp, and that was just amazing. And we wanted to stay there, but we couldn't stay there because we had to go down further, because Bob Rock, God have mercy on him, had an exhibition of his photographs where the Heritage Centre is now just there by the Clock 8. And then Walter Verlin was down the town hall with his exhibition, so we had to rush down there. So there's so much to do, but this year in particular there's even more. So it's going to be extra rush, but it's just the most amazing night. And I remember one year, Pat O'Connor there in Strand Street had her house open for an hour or two, and of course her walls are done with all the paintings of all up the Blackwater, the Irish Rhine as we call it, and you'd never get to see that. The painting here is kind of, I don't know what you call it, but it would come out from the wall, the kind of thick painting. It's the only house in Ireland that you get to see that, and we got to see that in Culture Night. Above CRY here in Youghal, which was the old Presentation Convent, and this most amazing piece of old archive films, and some of my father's stuff was there, and that made it very personal. And that was a brilliant day, actually, that was up there. And people were asking questions as well, I remember, and the people were just chatting away and saying, oh, I know that. And it was just brilliant. He did the fire brigade, he did the lifeboat, Youghal lifeboat, which is a huge part of Youghal. He did the building of the new bridge. It showed the old bridge before it was knocked down, the storms in the 1960s, all the old processions, numerous things that you could, 3 hours of fantastic stuff. There's so much work goes into Culture Night. People will be out now Friday night and they'll be going everywhere to see everything that's on. But nobody realises the work that's behind it. And just a thank you to all the people that do so much work for Culture Night. They all need to be remembered.
He's going to teach us. It'll only take 5 minutes. Beautiful too.
This is beautiful work. This is the kind of stuff that Granny does as well.
No, this is the one
Granny can look like that.
All the nannies do it.
I didn't pay enough attention at the right time.
All the grannies do it.
You know, my mother told me it's very long time.
Yeah, we sit down. Pull up a chair.
My name is Kay Curtin, And I'm up here in 136 North Main Street in Case Flowers, the old Clark shop. My first culture night was the all needlepoint lace, and that was back in 2012, and that was a great success. I invited all the sisters in from the convent outside the Strand. They came in. I had a beautiful wedding dress given on loan from Karen Farrell for the window. I had a bit of the history in the window also, and it was just a great success. I had music on the evening. I gave refreshments out, and of course a lot of people came along saying their grandmother did the lace, my own grandaunt did it, Katie. I had a piece of her lace on display, and that was a great night. That was kind of my first really culture night as such, you know. I suppose I grew up with the stories from my mother and the way she used to steep the lace in the tea, and she used to rub the lace to flatten it with a seashell, and I have that seashell here with me all the time. Then, of course, a few years ago, there was a lady came from America doing research on Youghal needlepoint lace. She visited my parents, and she couldn't get over all the information my mother had. Also, she wrote a book and posted the book back, a hard copy book, which I have also. There was a lot of people turned up for the lace. Obviously, it was kind of, I had a lot of information around the shop, and I spoke about the lace and what I knew about it. It mightn't have been 100% right, but it is what I was told from my mother, you know, at the time, and that's what I displayed on the night. They were the women of the town. They were the young women. They started at 13 years of age, and there was a school below there, as you know, where Youghal Radio is now, and that's where they made the lace. And of course the lace could only be made at a particular time of the day because of the daylight. So that was very important. And of course all the different stitches, there was a load of stitches, and very valuable. A lot of it sold to the English monarchy at the time, you know. And I always feel it's part of our heritage in the town, and it should be remembered and should be recalled. I just love the whole vision around Culture Night. I just love the idea of it. It's just such a sense of remembering our past, because it's only by remembering our past that we can go forward, and I think that's what we have to do in Youghal. It was a big long train, and it was just out of this world, and I had a photo of that on display on the night because the convent gave me a loan of lovely photos. They have some of the lace on display. I think a lot of it has after been moved now, you know, to the city. And I have a lovely photo of Sister Carmel pointing in at the wedding dress, and it was fantastic. That was a great success now that night, really great. So I moved up to 136 North Main Street here. It was Clark's old shoe shop, and the first year I was here, I decided I'd do Culture Night and that I'd bring Hilda Clark down on the night, and she was just delighted with the night, and David came, and there was such a crowd here, and everyone was telling their stories about they used to come in, they used to buy the shoes, and at that time you'd put them on tick and you'd pay every week. And of course when I did move in here, we found a lot of ledgers and a load of people's names on them. We found about 5 ledgers, and I actually had them on display that night. And the curiosity, you couldn't get near the ledgers. Everyone was looking up their grandparents, their mother and father's name, and of course it was marked paid, and it was very funny. One woman there said, "Oh, we never paid for the shoes," but it didn't matter. It was just so nice to have the stories and the addresses and everything. We found a load of stuff when we moved up, and of course obviously the shoes, the Doc Martens, the Salamanders, the Gabor, all them shoes were found here, and little old-fashioned slippers, and oh my God. And then of course there was slippers for the ladies of the night, and they were very interested in the ones we found, you know, and it was fantastic. And we had the chairs, we displayed the chairs that were here for years, where people sat and waited to get the shoes and their feet measured, you know, so that was very interesting. Well, this year, before the pandemic, I had the idea, obviously I didn't know the pandemic was coming. I was going to do, I just always had a thing in my head about St Mary's Brassenreid Bend, and I had said to the late Jim Coleman that I was going to do it, and he was saying, "Kay, I have the picture, you'll have to put the picture in the window now when you're doing it," and all that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm remembering. It's a tribute really to St Mary's Brassenreid Bend, because my memory of them growing up was Christmas Eve playing in all the, I don't know how they did it. They went around to every terrace and estate and played, and it was just so memorable, you know. And I have some of the music that they played on display in the window there, and I have some of the instruments. I just love having them in the window because everyone is looking at them. My daughter was coming home from work late the other night and she said, Ma'am, there's such a crowd outside the window. So to me, that's worth it. I don't care about anything else, it's worth it. My daughter rang me, she said, Ma'am, I'm downtown now, and I pulled in and she said, you should see the people looking at the window and they're pointing. And actually the other day I was in here and there was a girl outside the door with her father and with a grandchild, and they were saying, there's your grandfather, there's your father, and I'm in it. So that was 3 generations, you know, and there's probably 4 generations as well if you look closely enough, you know. I wouldn't know. I know Tony Sheehan told me his grandfather was one of the founding members of St Mary's Bressonreed Bend, so he got very emotional. He didn't know I was doing it at all, and he passed 3 weeks ago, and I had the window down, and he said, Kay, we were coming home last night, I couldn't believe it. Oh my God, the stuff, everything is just so fabulous. It's about doing it to remember it, because if we don't remember these things that happened in all years ago, we might as well, our children won't remember them. Nobody will. Even my daughter said, was there a Bressonreed Bend in all? There was. I said, look at all the people. I was in it, sure. My 2 brothers were in it. So, you know, so that's the memories I think we have to hold on to. If we don't tell people what happened in Youghal years ago and what we had in Youghal, which was fantastic, and of course we didn't have anything else. I loved going down to the rehearsal or to the practices every week. I loved it, and Sean Brown and all the people in it. It was fantastic, and I think definitely the culture night. And this is the first culture night now after the pandemic, and I think it will be very well supported.
Yeah, that is the one we saw on paper. This one definitely just too big. No, it wasn't. Too big for me, too big for you. It would be nice.
CRY 104 played a major part in Culture Night, because when it was first mooted, of course, as you know, Culture Night is a great showcase for not national but local history and local fairs. It was basically ideal for us, because that's what we were doing. And I think the very, very first Culture Night we had was down in the town hall. And no, at the time, we were all kind of fledgling as regards Culture Night, because we didn't know basically what it was. But after a while, after 1 or 2 years, we got into it. And as I said there, we were in the town hall. We'd done in our own place up in Community Radio Youghal with the Youghal films, and indeed that was a huge success. And of course then we went on to John Kennedy's Gossip Shop. And of course John Kennedy's Gossip Shop, as everybody knows, was basically a mine of history, as we all know. And of course John was one of our own presenters in Community Radio, so it was a natural progression that we went in to and did several outside broadcasts in John Kennedy's Gossip Shop. I was involved from the technical point of view. John Kennedy himself was involved, Jim Coleman was involved, Tim Smith was involved, and Tony Sheehan was involved. So what we tried to do is we tried to get all cultures. It was basically a musical night as well. So we tried to get all facets of the music. Jim Coleman naturally was bordering on the classical, you know. Tony Sheehan was bordering on basically the deeper classical. John Kennedy, of course, was, as we all know, John Kennedy was dealing with John McCormack and local history as well. Tim Smith was representing the Irish culture of the night. So we thought we had a good mix. And indeed, the second year we done it, actually, we had a local group in performing local music, live music. And we thought that was a great, addition to Culture Night. Well, it was basically an open, as you know, in all these Culture Nights, it was an open door policy. There were several events going on in the early days. And of course now there could be 20 or 30 events going on, as we all know. But every one was an open door policy, and John Kennedy's was the same. And people could come in, and it was so impromptu that people could come in and shout in the door, John, play request me or mention this or something like that, you see. And that's the way it went. but we thought it was a brilliant idea. John Kennedy, of course, was a mind of information, as we all know, absolute mind of information. And I think what John used to do actually is when we were going over from the radio studio over to the gossip shop, I was naturally monitoring what was in the radio, and we would straight away, the lads would go over and they'd change over and we'd say, hello, good evening and welcome to the gossip shop. But what John had done is, as you know, John was very much into clocks and clock making and clock repairing and all that. He'd all the clocks set in the place to go off at exactly the time we after the broadcasts. So when we were starting to open the broadcast, next minute we heard cuckoo clocks and ding-dongs and bells and whistles all over the place. But that added to it. It was local, it was impromptu. It was a home movie night. Perks had films in there as well. There was several groups in town and several identities in town. The Horgan brothers we had in there. That was a fantastic night. And indeed, looking at us, that was a live outside broadcast as well. Because I think we just broadcast and even tell people, even though it was a visual display, we were able to broadcast and tell people what was going on. You had Billy Mattis films over there. Bill Burke's films as well, and that was a hugely important night for us because we felt that we were showcasing and they were broadcasting to the people of Youghal and the surrounding area and telling people what we had. Horgans, of course, needless to say, the Horgan collection was absolutely outstanding, The time of the Atlantic Hotel burning down. Now, I think I was only maybe an apprentice in the ESB at the time, but my father was the supervisor here, and he got the call one night to say, look, from the fire brigade call to say that the Atlantic Hotel had come down. Now, the criteria at the time, and it still is, that the firemen wouldn't put any water on account of electric cables and wires and the danger of electrocution. So he had to go up first and cut off the cables coming into the hotel. And I remember he climbing up, and the cables were at the back of the hotel up as you go in there to Rectory Road. And he climbed the pole there. But I think it was Bob Chappell, was it, that actually took the home movie of him up in the pole cutting off the electricity supply. And the funny thing is, I remember when he came home, he used to always wear a sports jacket, one of these Donegal tweed sports jacket. And when he came home, there was all holes burnt in the jacket because, the embers were going that way, you see. But it was a huge shock for me, and it was a huge surprise for me. And my brother as well was down there, Eamon was down there as well. And it was we were looking at each other and saying, that's Dad, that's Jim Cronin up in the pole, So it was absolutely fascinating. And this is one of the things, I suppose, and the beauty of Culture Night. And I've heard that so many times that people can say, oh, look, there's so-and-so in an old photograph, or there's so-and-so. So that's the beauty of Culture Night. It reawakens, I suppose, our interest in local affairs. And this is why we're all very, very enthusiastic for Culture Night. And looking at the programme, it seemed to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It all went pear-shaped for us because, of course, the dreaded COVID came in. And, that everybody had to change. Not all the events every event was cancelled. But what we did came up on those, on every Culture Night, is we were able to go back through our archives and we were able to play, we'd say, concerts now, we'd say festivals held in town, when you get name big bands in, ABBA now, we'll say, the ABBA tribute band, the Drifters tribute band, and the kind of thing. And we got all them through our archive slot. And it was so successful at the time, actually, that we're actually continuing it on now. And we've actually converted into a twice monthly programme here and on every Monday night. And it's called Just a Memory. We got such a huge response from these items that we put on that we said, look, we're dealing with the present. We have so much archive stuff that, we will play it again and again and again. And when we played this archive stuff on Culture Night, we got such a huge response. We said, hey, we're going to do this on a bi-monthly basis. For me, I suppose now, looking up, I suppose you could say basically, I'm at the autumn of my life, and looking back on, we say, it's very, very important to know whence we came, what brought us here, and the contributions that men and women done in the past, we'd say, to portray these, photographs, videos, that kind of thing, audio, transcripts as well, to realise that whence we came and to be able to look back on these things. This is where community radio comes into its own. We can devote so much time to these things, whereas commercial stations can't. Commercial stations are watching the pounds, shillings and pence, and they've only a certain time. But we here in Community Radio Youghal, we can afford to do these things. We can devote so much time to, we say, local items, local history and that kind of thing. And I do think that Youghal's future is through its past. If we can mark the past, and boy, have we a past here in this town. What we have done this year now with CRY is we formed a base at our studios in Youghal House, and we're going to have several reporters on the road reporting into each and every venue around the place. It's the huge effort, the background effort that goes into these things. Like, these things don't happen on their own. And like, we are indebted, as I say, to Cork County Council, to the likes of Sinead Goggin, and indeed to the likes of Mike Hussey as well. You know, for putting so much work into these things. Because, as I say, these things don't happen on their own. And it's a huge night for Youghal. A huge night for Youghal. When I look at the programme to see all the events that are on there, like, you know, it's absolutely huge. And indeed, we're proud to be part of it.
My name is Sinead Goggin and I am the event coordinator for Culture Night in Youghal. I work in collaboration with Cork County Council and the Culture Night Cork County coordinator, Gráinne O'Connor. Gráinne has just come on board this year and she's put together an exciting and adventurous programme of activities and events in the town. Culture Night goes back in Youghal since around 2010, I think was the first year we had it in Youghal, and year on year it's been building and developing, and people's enthusiasm and want to get involved in the event has been absolutely amazing. I have been involved with, I would say, for the last 5 years, very heavily involved, but it has been going on prior to that as well. And as I say, it's just so exciting to see the culture trail develop, the recognition of our creativity and heritage and artistic community in the town. So it's absolutely wonderful to be involved in it. Throughout the years I have been collaborating with Cork County Council, but Cork County Council are coming at it from a different angle this year. They're very proactive and I suppose they've recognised what we have to offer and they just want to up it a level. And as I said, Gráinne O'Connor, she is the Cork County coordinator for Culture Night, and she came to the town and we put out feelers and we had a meeting in the town hall where everybody kind of gave their opinion or how they wanted to be part of the whole event, and it was a very enthusiastic, proactive meeting. It developed our sense of community in the town and it was very positive overall, and from that now it's been developing and we have a really, really exciting programme of events coming up. I had the database myself of all the local groups and organisations working with Gráinne again, and we had 2 meetings, and the enthusiasm and the amount of people that actually attended was amazing from all walks of life in the town. I mean, people have seen what a positive event it is and how good it is for the community, and they have come on board. We had very kind of constructive meetings. We all worked together, and since then we've all been networking and developing a fantastic programme for this year's Culture Night. Well, we've been using WhatsApp, we've been using Facebook, we've been emailing, all these kind of social media. I mean, I'm always at the end of the phone if anyone wants to give me a buzz, and Gráinne is as well in Cork County Council, so we're available all the time if anybody has any queries or questions, and that goes for the community itself as well. I'm walking down the street and people are asking me questions, Sinead, what can I do about this, what can I do about that? So we're always on hand to help. But as you say, there's a huge amount of logistics. I kind of focus on the Mal Arts Centre and St Mary's Collegiate Church. And from my own personal experience, the Mal Arts Centre this year is going to be an artistic hub. There's going to be so many activities taking place, so many people involved. The build-up to it's amazing. I mean, the amount, even setting up exhibitions, making sure the technical aspect of everything is right. We're having rehearsals rehearsals, and there's so many different groups, and then they require so many different kind of logistical aspects put in place for everything to come together. But it's fine. We're all working together. We're all going to be down there on Thursday. We're all going to be hanging up pictures and plugging in plugs, and everything's going to be perfect. Some of the events that I've done in the past in the Mal Arts Centre, Brunashe have performed down there. That's the local traditional music group, which are very strong locally. And in fact, this year they'll be holding workshops up there, and they're going to come down to the Mal Arts Centre afterwards and perform for us. That's after our friends from the Ukraine are going to be performing down there. We have a youth group from the Ukraine who are going to be performing the Mal Arts Centre. They're a little choir, so we're looking forward to welcoming them. And then there's other local, well-established groups like Youghal for All who take part every year and always put on a very, very strong production. The town is a buzz of activity on the night. We've got a wonderful culture train going from one end of the town to the other end of the town. Buildings, historical monumental buildings are lit up, and for example this year the town hall is going to be lit up in lovely bright colours celebrating Culture Night. The Red House, every year the owner of the Red House, she lights up this magnificent iconic building that's in the centre of the town, and it's like something from a chocolate box. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's an attraction, and people come to look at it and take photographs and the whole. It's kind of a once a year activity. It only happens once a year, and it only happens for Culture Night. With Culture Night, we're always evolving and developing, and we're always trying to make it better. And Cork County Council are great support, and they're with us all the time. So I have worked in collaboration, as I said, with Cork County Council, and they've supported in the last 4 years now that we've had Culture Night in the town. They've supported a culture bus. Culture bus, it's a complimentary bus service that takes people who are visitors and locals alike to their favourite Culture Night venues. So as you know, Youghal is a very long town. So if we're down in the radio, the community radio Youghal, and we want to get up to the Collegiate Church, it's a long, long walk. But there's a lot of venues and Culture Night hotspots from A to B. So I mean, people can kind of go on the trail, hop on the bus. I'll be on the bus, so I'll be looking out for people. Hop on the bus, and we'll take you to wherever you'd like to go. Culture Night wise. It's complimentary, it's totally free, so we have a little kind of a culture trail. We'll be going around the back street and the main street, so if people see us, just give us a little wave and we'll pick you up and take you to wherever you want to go. It's so good for the community spirit, and it just gives artists a platform as well on which to show their work. Like the local photography group, the Love Youghal photography group, they're having their first exhibition down the Mal Arts Centre this year. The Plein Air art group, they're going to be exhibiting as well, and it's just giving people the opportunity to showcase their work who might not have done so otherwise.